Hello, scumbags, one and all, and welcome to the vote of the know the confidence. That's right, I'm 80 years old. I add the to everything, like my uncle who asked me if I've ever seen the movie The Inceptions.
Inceptions is a good movie.
Rob McDonald, how are you today?
I am doing great, Andrew. How about yourself?
I'm pretty good, thank you. I'm ready to dive into this Senate discussion and vote on a... This is one of those... This topic made me laugh because this seems like one of those very basic, like, playground topics. Like, my character can beat up your character, you know what I mean?
Right, we've been through this before. We'll see what happens this time on the playground.
We like this one. This one it was a cool idea. It came from one of our commenters, one of our fans, Rowan Dangerfield. Thank you, Rowan Dangerfield. We are taking your consideration to heart, and we are going to argue what you wanted us to argue. We're going to argue who's cooler, Han Solo in the original trilogy or Obi-Wan Kenobi in the prequels.
Ooh, it's a barn burner. Yeah, thanks for suggesting these topics. Keep suggesting them, and we'll keep doing episodes about them.
It'll be a really cool one. I hope somebody suggests it. Is we have to argue who's cooler, you or me, but I'm arguing you and you're arguing me.
Oh, yeah, that'll be a difficult one. I have a feeling we'll just end with both of us agreeing with each other.
Sure. So let's get started. Why don't you start us off there, Rob?
Who are you? All right, so the side that I'm on is the side of Han Solo, and then, of course, you are on...
I'm on the Obi-Wan side, and it's actually very fitting because you've got sort of the Han Solo headgear on from when he's shooting at TIE fighters. So it kind of works. All right, go for it.
I'm going to be going like this just the whole time. Anyway, so yeah, I'll start it off here. And I think in particular, a very key thing to start off with Han Solo is just the fact that Harrison Ford's portraying him. And this was Harrison Ford in such an early part in his career where just nobody knew who he was. There would just be some people that'd be like, oh, that's the American Graffiti guy, right? That's about it. And then in this movie, this is a movie that's about Luke Skywalker. It's a movie that's about his hero's journey and whatnot. And then the amazing thing about Han Solo in that very first movie was as soon as he showed up on the screen, even though we saw the great Alec Guinness portraying Obi-Wan Kenobi, old Obi-Wan, and already had Carrie Fisher as Leia, who was a cool, sassy, strong woman, and then you had Luke Skywalker, that was the main character. Then Han Solo shows up, played by Harrison Ford, and he just starts taking over the screen. He starts oozing charisma. He's just there on the screen, takes it all over, and almost to the point where I'm watching this screen, and no matter if they're on the Death Star or like Yavin 4 or whatnot, when he's on the screen, I'm just looking at him to see his reaction because of how good he is, because of how much every one of his reactions and even one of his lines that he says, he brings something that like people can get attracted to, and that's just a cool thing just to start off about Han Solo and Harrison Ford playing him in the original trilogy.
Actually, it's funny you mention it. Oozing Charisma is my stripper name.
Oh, you stole mine then.
Yeah, Han Solo's a cool guy, but I think at the end of the day, prequel Obi-Wan Kenobi, he takes the cake for coolness. The first thing I noticed right away when I was given this topic to think about was Obi-Wan Kenobi is, in essence, he is the White Knight character. He falls into that mold. He's super heroic. You know, he's completely, for all you D&D people out there, he is lawful good. He's always on the side of goodness. He wears like light colors. I don't think he wears like white exactly, but he's got like that beige thing going on anyway.
Yeah. You know, he's got the layers. He likes layers.
So he fits into that mold of the White Knight so well. But there's a stigma that's attached to the idea of the White Knight, and that is when you think of a White Knight character, you think of somebody who's, for lack of a better term, as boring as dry toast. You think of like 1940s-esque Superman or Captain America, where they're just like, don't worry, man, I'll save your cat. And that's literally all they've got going on for them, like, for freedom and America. And that's like, there's nothing to them. So the idea that we got a complex White Knight, that's what intrigues me, because every character who is like Han Solo, who is the sort of like dashing, charming sidekick kind of character, they're all very similar. They're all very cool. They're always cool characters. I think I've never, I'm going to shock some people, I've never seen The Princess Bride, but I know there's a character in The Princess Bride who is supposedly a lot like Han Solo.
Somewhat, yeah. Yeah, if you're talking about Carrie Elwes, I guess, yeah, perhaps that might be it.
Yeah.
He's kind of got, like, yeah, the black garb on. Regardless, yeah, this is not about Princess Bride, as much as I want it to be.
That's our, it's called, Andrew hasn't seen this yet, so why is he talking about it? But, so those characters are always going to impress. But the White Knight character, for a long, long time, has not impressed. So when Obi-Wan Kenobi comes along in the prequels, remember, this is before the Marvel Cinematic Universe. This was before we got a really cool Captain America. Obi-Wan took that mold of the White Knight and he made him cool. In 3 straight movies, he was the coolest guy on screen. He was. I mean, Anakin, he's the main guy, but he wasn't like a cool dude. Like, we didn't look at Anakin and be like, damn, this guy's badass. We were just like, wow.
James would argue about Jar Jar, I think, in the first movie.
So would everybody. Yeah, that's true. Jar Jar is sort of like a league above that, and we can't really, there's no way I'm going to top him in coolness. So I'm just trying to, I'm setting the bar a little lower. But like, nobody else in those movies, maybe with the exception of Palpatine, has had the power to be on screen and be like, I got you, audience. I got you. You're mine. I'm going to enrapture your attention 100%. Obi-Wan did that because he defied convention. He defied the White Knight convention. He's turned to us and he said, I know I'm the White Knight, but trust me, I'm pretty badass too. Like, he was hip. He was a hip character, and we needed that. I think the original trilogy was full of hip characters, obviously Han Solo being the crown jewel of that. But even without, if you had taken Han away from those movies, there would still be cool people to latch onto. If you took out Obi-Wan from the prequels, you wouldn't have that. So Obi-Wan really gave it 100% of what we're looking for in a cool character throughout, not just one movie, but a trilogy of them.
All right, so I'm actually glad that you kind of brought up this whole notion about the hip characters in both like trilogies too, because like it kind of like brings on like a slight. We joked about wrestling before, but it was like it brings like a slight wrestling notion to it, where it's like in wrestling you always want your next guy that you want to be the big person to overtake like the other big guy or the previous big guy or something like that. It's like always about like one-upping yourself and one-upping the previous person. So the fact that I think in the in the prequel trilogy, the fact that Obi-Wan was kind of like the only hip one around there was nobody to really contend with him. Han Solo had to contend with these other ones, and like you said, he kind of like rose above the rest. So it was like there was all these people that could have fought for this top spot about who's the hip one, but Han Solo actually outdid everybody else and took that number 1 spot. So on top of that, the fact that I gotta mention is that we were talking about this archetype of this bad boy and type of thing, and in a lot of ways, like Han Solo is like the bad boy, and the women love him, and he's like the womanizer in like some ways, even though there's only like 3 women in in the entire original trilogy. But still, it's that notion of like at that time in like 1977, it was like you had like the bad boys, but they're mostly like in westerns and stuff like that, right? You had your Clint Eastwood and whatnot. He was like the grizzled guy, but it was like then you had the womanizer that was like Captain Kirk. That wasn't so much the gruff guy. He really brought like that Han Solo character pretty much brought in this new archetype that everybody's gonna love and that filmmakers wanted in their movies, right? Like you wanted this guy that's both like cool, suave, and also like good looking and whatnot. So the women love him and men just want to be him. And that's like more or less what it was. Like, what's that?
Like Austin Powers.
Like Austin Powers. There you go. I unintentionally stole a line from Austin Powers. There we go. But anyway, it kind of like, since then it was kind of like, Indiana Jones isn't quite like that, but it's like that was another one that like added another layer on it, and then suddenly like Harrison Ford was portraying these 2 characters that everybody wanted in their movies. That like this type of character is what what everybody wanted as their action hero or whatnot, right? So much so that we just see it around all the time. Like Chris Pratt is pretty much that character in every one of his movies when he's not in a ship with Jennifer Lawrence. But but yeah, it's so, that character is so influential. Like that way, like, yes, Obi-Wan in the prequel trilogy added another layer as to what that character was, but it's still not a character I think that everybody loves. Everybody wants to create this big charismatic character that just takes over the screen as soon as he's there. And the fact that you could have that with Han Solo, and everybody wants that in their movies nowadays, is just such a big testament to how good Harrison was in that first movie.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Thank you.
End of video. I want to talk a little bit about like sort of putting ourselves in the situation of Star Wars. A very simple point, really, very quick point, not much to it. But if I was dropped into the Star Wars universe and I had to choose between Han Solo or prequel Obi-Wan Kenobi to be like my buddy, I would go with Obi-Wan Kenobi, because Han Solo has proved time and again that he is a true virtuous friend. I mean, he is a good friend to Chewie, good friend to Luke. He's not a bad guy by any stretch of the imagination. But Han has his issues, and Obi-Wan. You have to think about how Obi-Wan, his life, like the people who would fight the most. You have Qui-Gon, and then you have Anakin Skywalker. And for lack of a better term, I know they're his master and his apprentice, but for his life, those were his two best friends. First Qui-Gon, then Anakin. And you can visibly see, and this is a testament to Ewan's performance too, but you can visibly see in Obi-Wan during the prequels that this is a man who is very frustrated. But he covers it all with this sort of gentle good humor and like a lighthearted kind of tone. But he's a man who's frustrated because he's so staunch, he's so by the book, he's an exemplary Jedi. But at the same time, these two men in his life who he has respected above all else, they're both kind of rebels in that regard. I mean, Qui-Gon was a rebellious Jedi. He did some questionable things because he knew when the Jedi were right and when they were not right. And Anakin did the same things, not really with as much logic behind it, more just out of pure emotion, but he was more of a rebel too. Anakin was like, and Obi-Wan called him this in Revenge of the Sith, he was the poster boy for the New Republic. He was basically like the hunky Han Solo figure of the New Republic back then. The Old Republic, when the war was going on. So Obi-Wan had these two people as his best friends. And if you think about it, if you're the kind of person who is very, you're a good guy or whatever, but you're by the book, and your two best friends in your life have not been, they've always been like that opposite side of the coin of you. And you have sort of had to put that aside and be like, okay, despite that, I still love this person. He's still my friend. That's such a realistic thing to do, first of all. Second of all, it's such a testament to Obi-Wan's character, because he is trapped in this situation where he's like, I want to do this thing because that's what I should be doing, but no, the person I'm with wants to do something else, and we're probably going to end up doing that. But I'll sacrifice what I want for him because that's, I'm his friend. And you can see those moments shine through in the prequels where Obi-Wan is just like, God, why don't either of them just listen to me? But it's something we've all been there with our friends, and Obi-Wan takes that hit for the team because he is such a good friend. He is that guy. I feel like if I was friends with Han Solo would be that rebellious guy who is like, no, we're doing what I want, Andrew. Whereas Obi-Wan he's more about compromise. So at the end of the day, if I had to choose one of these guys to hang out with, it'd be Obi-Wan Kenobi, just for that fact that he's that guy who is going to be, even though he doesn't agree with what I'm doing, he's going to stand up beside me and fight beside me for my benefit.
Yeah, I think the thing with if we're talking about who we want as our friends, and especially if we're just meeting them for the first time and we're being thrown on a mission with them, yeah, perhaps Han Solo is the more likely one to just throw you on an escape pod and throw you to the fodder, right? Throw you to the stormtrooper so he can get away. But yeah, I mean, like you said, Han Solo does have those friendship qualities in that when he grew closer to Luke and found some things in common with Luke, those were good friends. They were strong friends. And I'm sure, and like in the new Han Solo movie, we're probably going to find out a whole lot more stuff about Lando and Han Solo's friendship. But as my closing salvo, I think within this whole thing, I think I got to point out one thing, and that's from a wonderful filmmaker known as Mel Brooks. And Mel Brooks in the hilarious Spaceballs. I love that movie. I watch it like once a year probably. And the very key thing about what he did with that movie was that in the original trilogy, Luke is the hero, but in a lot of ways, he's kind of dry toast. He's kind of like, he doesn't have as much going as a character, right? Nothing, at least that fans, a lot of people like to gravitate towards. And the thing that Mel Brooks did was just like, hey, let's cut out Luke Skywalker. Let's cut out basically the main character of this entire thing and basically make Han Solo the Luke character. So take Luke's story or whatnot, and then put that onto Han Solo. So that's in a lot of ways what Bill Pullman's character in that movie was. I forgot his name for a second. Lone Star. There we go. And what was his first name in that? That's what I was trying to figure out.
Lone.
It was Lone Star, his first name? Oh, okay. There we go. Regardless, yeah, Lone Star, like very much like Mel Brooks, even for his parody of this, he took the strong and amazing character that is Han Solo and basically made him the main character. He applied all that type of stuff in terms of the Force and in Spaceballs version, the Schwartz, and applied that onto Han Solo, and he gave him those characteristics because of just how much at that time, even like people wanted that type of character to be their lead character in a movie. So the fact that the amazing Mel Brooks could even see that part and in doing a Star Wars parody essentially was pretty telling, I think, in how good of a character Han Solo is in the original trilogy.
Yeah, and before I get to my last point, I'll bring up they keep talking about him possibly doing a Spaceballs sequel because of Star Wars. I will only accept a Spaceballs sequel if they call it Spaceballs 2: The Search for More Money. If they don't call it The Search for More Money, I will be very upset.
Yeah, that would be just like the funny joke about it. It's like a 22 Jump Street type of a scenario where they're just like throwing out all these random things. Yeah, that'd be amazing. But how long has it been since Mel Brooks has done a movie? Probably like 20 years, right?
Oh yeah, it's been. Wasn't Spaceballs like his last big one, or was there one after that?
His big success, but I thought there was that Dracula Dead and Loving It movie, and I think that one came out in like 95.
That's not a success.
I like parts of it, but anyway, once again, we're off on this tangent from Princess Bride to Dracula Dead and Loving It. But anyway, go ahead, Andrew.
So my last point would be a piece of Obi-Wan Kenobi, a sliver of his character from the prequels that kind of always gets lost in the shuffle when we talk about Obi-Wan, is he embodies one of the, and again, like because this debate is about who's cooler, he embodies one of the coolest archetypes in modern fiction, and that is the archetype of, and excuse me, I'm going to spin in my chair while I do it, just to accentuate how cool it is, but he embodies the archetype of the hard-boiled detective.
I thought you were going to say driving the giant lizard.
Yeah, that too. I forgot about the giant lizard. In episode 2, the detective Obi-Wan that we get is so friggin' cool because not only is it a departure from what we're used to in Star Wars, we're not used to detective work in Star Wars, but it is to put that label of detective on a character. The last person you would think to put that onto would be a white knight character like Obi-Wan Kenobi, but they do it. They make him this like street walking kind of dude who's running around piecing these clues together for the Jedi Council, and that to me, that was one of my favorite aspects of that movie was, him unraveling this mystery that is ultimately going to lead to the Emperor is a thing now. And if you remember the scene where he walks into Dexter's diner and he sits down and he asks,
how can we forget?
Oh, right. And James remind us if we do. What you have to remember is that scene when he's sitting down and talking to Dex, it's made very clear to us through their dialogue. This is not the first time these two gentlemen have sat down and traded information. Not by a long shot. Which leads me to believe that Obi-Wan Kenobi, in the 10-year gap between Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones, has spent a lot of time on Coruscant solving mysteries, making contacts in the streets like a real detective, one of which would be Dexter Jettster. To the point where it's like, I was a fan of season 1 of the show True Detective. Imagine a show like True Detective set on Coruscant where it's Obi-Wan and Dexter. Like Dexter's one of his contacts. Obi-Wan just kind of walks around with his hands in his pockets and he's like, it's nighttime on Coruscant. I have to find the smuggler soon, but I don't have any leads.
Is Rust in this show? I hope he is. Matthew McConaughey?
That to me, like, you take one of these coolest, most classic archetypes of like a cool character and you stick them in this Star Wars situation. That is not only an example of how cool Obi-Wan is, but it's an example of just how great Star Wars is at basically taking the concept of genres, saying, fuck you, we're going to do what we want, and like putting everything in one movie. Star Wars is one of those beautiful movies that if you owned a Blockbuster Video, rest in peace, you wouldn't know what shelf to put that movie on because it is everything in one bundle. And like, it's a romance, a Western, sci-fi, fantasy, and now because of Obi-Wan Kenobi, we can add a film noir detective story onto that too. And to me, nothing's cooler than film noir detectives.
I'm gonna have to do one last side, Akbar. The fact that you just mentioned Blockbuster. If you guys haven't followed this, there's a specific Twitter account on Twitter. It's called The Last Blockbuster, and it's just it's a Blockbuster account for, like, it's not necessarily the last Blockbuster, but it's just about that. But it's literally making fun of Blockbuster in a lot of ways. Keeps posting these random things that it's like, hey, does anybody need blank check? We have plenty of copies of it and stuff like that. It's just random hilarious tweets like that.
I saw Blank Check in theaters, Rob.
I did not see it. I wasn't fortunate enough for that, unfortunately. If I had a blank check, then perhaps I would have seen Blank Check.
It's called The Last Blockbuster?
I believe so, yeah. I don't know if it's at The Last Blockbuster, but regardless, like the head name says The Last Blockbuster.
That's great. I found one. I found a Blockbuster building about a year and a half ago. I was actually on Kijiji. I was trying to find the Black Series of R2-D2. Some guy was selling it on Kijiji. It was like maybe an hour's drive from here. I forget what town it was. And we drove out there, me and my friend, and the plaza where we met this gentleman literally had a Blockbuster in it. I'm like, oh my God. And we walked up to it. It was closed. Obviously, there was nothing inside. But the sign was still there. And we hadn't seen one of those signs in years. So we took like pictures in front of it. We were like bowing to it. I miss it.
That's hilarious. Well, I literally think that this episode of Vote or No Confidence should be called Vote or No Confidence, Side Akbar, Robin, and Andrew talk about stuff.
Well, my dear fellow Senate members, now's the time for you to vote. Do you like Han Solo better? Do you think Obi-Wan's cooler? What's your say in the matter? Just remember, any of you out there who are planning on saying right away Han Solo is cooler, let me remind you of one little quote from A New Hope, and that is, who's more foolish, the fool or the fool who follows it?
Oh shit. That's Andrew's final mic drop. But yeah, again, it's about these two awesome characters from these two different trilogies of Star Wars, and in a lot of ways, those are the two highlights from each of those trilogies. So it's about what you guys think. Maybe even watch all 6 movies back to back and then make a decision. Come on and type on out Rob's an idiot or Andrew's wrong or something like that.
But I hope he literally watches all 6 movies just to figure out which one of us is right.
Yeah.
We took up like 12 hours of their time.
It should take up your time anyway. It's Star Wars, for gosh sakes, right?
Well,
but yeah,
it's Dangerfield for suggesting this topic to us. And
yes.
like Bob said, keep them coming. If you got stuff you want to hear, let's hear it. We'd be happy to do it. Until next time, this is
Vote of no confidence.
Oh, I was going to say, I guess I should have said, who are you?
Oh, who am I? Oh, I am Rob McDonald, but I might be vote of no confidence as well. I don't know.
Bob is your stage name. And I'm Fantasia, and we will see you next time on the channel, Voting for Things.
Hey scumbags, thanks for watching. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up on our video. As always, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Rebel Scum Podcast, for all the latest videos.